I have a little system set up, and I grind them through the system. What I'll do is I'll send them a notice. And then when they violate my rights, like for example, Canada Customs, I filed a criminal complaint, I sent it to the Attorney General for Canada. In 30 days, which is any time now, I'm gonna have to get my next criminal complaint ready. I've already got it ready, I gotta look it over and make sure it's complete. And I'll print it off, and then I'll go down and get it notarized. And it names him, the Attorney General for Canada, as a co-conspirator, accomplice after the fact, and in the crimes that the criminals at the Canada Customs did. And so I presume he's guilty, make him prove that he's not. And so I make up that affidavit, and I'll send it to the Prime Minister and the Governor General. And then after about 30 days, I'll make up another affidavit with the Governor General and the Prime Minister, and as co-conspirators after the fact, and I'll send it to the Queen. And then after about 30 days, I'll make up another criminal complaint with the Queen on it, and I'll send her a copy. And then actually what I'll do before I send it to her is I'll record it. And then I'll send her a copy of the recorded document, because that's like big time interface, you know? And I'm kind of like an in-your-face sort of guy. And so anyways, you know, I've done this before, and I know other people that do it, and the Queen is not happy. I think basically the Queen is probably a pretty good person that has a difficult job to do, and she's not happy about what's going on. And you know why? Because, you know, traditionally, the Queen has just rubber stamped whoever the Prime Minister wanted to be Governor General, right? She just appoint whoever the Prime Minister recommended, or the Premier. Well, she's not doing that anymore. Now she wants to appoint who she wants to appoint. Well, that's telling me that she wants to affect some change. She's not happy with the way things are going. That's good, that's the way it should be, so it works. Now, it didn't really help me in my particular situation. Actually it did, because this was an issue in Glenwood. I had a house in Glenwood, and they were trying to stick me for property taxes. And I brought forward the land patent. And it's a felony to damage a land patent, and the land patent doesn't say anything about property taxes on it. And so what happened is they were trying to stick me for property taxes, so I filed a criminal complaint against them, and I sent it to the Attorney General, and he blew me off or didn't do nothing, so I filed criminal complaint against the Alberta Attorney General and sent it to the Lieutenant Governor and the Premier, right? And then I went to the Queen. And it's interesting to note the Attorney General's not there anymore. Whether it's had anything to do with me or not, who knows? I think it did, but who knows, really? Do you have your hand up back there? Okay. Anyways, so I presume they're guilty and make them prove they're not. I'm just like a belligerent, in-your-face sort of guy. And in fact, I've seen court cases that say that the only people that have rights are the belligerent claimant. That's what they call it in a court case. I started out by filing commercial liens in 2005. I've been doing this. Remember Rice McLeod, I started listening to him in about 2004, 2005. And then I started filing commercial liens. I filed a $15 million commercial lien against IRS commissioners and the deputy commissioners. IRS Commissioner Mark Everson resigned. Matter of fact, I filed several criminal complaints against him too as well. And he was on the White House lawn with George Bush, and George Bush says, it's the toughest job in the country. So I don't know if there was anything I did, but I hope so.
You wear a bulletproof vest?
I tell them in my original criminal complaints, my original ones weren't as good as these ones. But I used to put in there, I had a whole paragraph dedicated to it. Go ahead, send your hired thugs over to my house and have them take me out back and blow my brains out, because I'm not going away. I'm going to file commercial liens against you. I'm going to seize your property, and I just get right up in their face. And I named these criminal complaints named like congressmen and senators and the president, and I'd send them all copies too. I filed a $500 million commercial lien against JP Morgan Chase Bank and all of their executive officers. There's a bunch of them. They got about 35. I filed a $500 million commercial lien against Wilshire Credit Corporation and all of their executive officers. There's not too many of them, about 5 or 6. I filed a $1 billion commercial lien against a law firm in Phoenix. And all of the executive officers, there's about 4 lawyers that were running this law firm. And I named them all. I filed a $15 million commercial lien against Capital One Bank and all their executive officers. I've sent numerous invoices. The United States owes me approximately $2 billion, and I already told you about that. The reason I'm telling you all this is that I believe that commercial liens are working or valid, but you're operating in their system and they're thieves. You know, how are you going to collect on them? You know, I could collect on them. I already know how to do it. I mean, basically what you do is find some of their assets and then sell them out from underneath them. You can't really steal them on them. You know, I could sign their assets over to me based on the commercial lien. I could do that, but you know, then they can always try and get it caught up in court and try and take them back. It'd be easier to sell them, you know, 10 cents on the dollar or something like that, and then they'll still owe me most of their commercial lien. And you know, but you know, quite frankly, my agenda is not, you know, they have good lawyers, let me say, the banks do, and I'm not interested in getting tied up in that. I mean, that stuff can tie you up forever. I'd rather just get some good government going, and that's more or less, that's why I do the criminal complaints, because I find that it has a better result, quite frankly. The commercial liens, they ignore you. They completely ignore you. It's like, you know, and you know, you got to send them 5 documents by certified mail. You send them a first notice, second notice, a notice of default, and an opportunity to cure. There's 5 of them, and the last one's a claim of lien. And you send it all by certified mail. That's expensive too. A criminal complaint isn't near as expensive. And plus with a commercial lien, you got to get a notary that'll work with you. And most notaries in the States are scared to death of that stuff. So, you know, I find the criminal complaint is a lot easier. You know, you don't even show them what the thing says. You just show them the back page where they have to notarize it. And, you know, that's it. That's all. They don't need to see it. And they never want to see it, quite frankly. So anyways, there's no honor among thieves. I started filing criminal complaints because I see better results. I filed hundreds of notices of demands and dozens of criminal complaints. And all the criminal complaints may be viewed at the Pinal County Recorder's website. You can go and look at them, just go on the internet. And except for the last one, the one that I did with Canada Customs hasn't been recorded yet. All the rest of them have. And you do a search, you can do a search based on my name. And actually they kind of mess it up sometimes, and so you have to, most of them are under Glenn Winningham Fern, but you might find some under Glenn Winningham, and you know, you have to kind of look around a little bit sometimes. But I've got hundreds of documents that are recorded there, I'll tell you. After filing criminal complaints, I've seen numerous people resign or removed. The U.S. Attorney for Arizona. You know, I don't know if you remember way back when, there was a big scandal in the States about under the Bush administration where there was a bunch of U.S. attorneys that the Republicans removed that were Democrats, right? And what happened is, but this U.S. attorney was removed at the same time, but he was a Republican. And his name was Paul Charlton, and it was in Arizona. And I was having trouble. And what I do, okay, like I was having problems with the IRS and with Pinal County, okay? And so I was given notices to the Arizona Attorney General, to the U.S. Attorney, Arizona Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney in Arizona, the FBI in Arizona, the U.S. Marshals in Arizona, the county sheriff in Maricopa and Pinal County, the chief of police in Phoenix, and the chief of police in, I think I did Chandler and Tempe as well, and Casa Grande for sure. Anyways, that's what you have to do. Anybody that could possibly do something to you based on some claim that is potentially coming, you send them a notice. And what happens is none of them, not one of them, ever bothered me. I did get bothered by a bounty hunter, but I didn't get bothered by the police. There was a bounty hunter that actually came to see me one time, but it was a bounty hunter, it wasn't a cop. It's kind of interesting. Anyways, so these are all people that the Alberta Attorney General, I think I got, was Ron Sama? Was it Ron Sama? Who's the Attorney General before the current one? Anyway, huh?
Normie Wong.
Norm.
No, that's the,
No,
that's
Wong.
Lieutenant
He's-
Governor.
He was the Lieutenant Governor, that's right. I filed a criminal complaint against him. But,
Oh, Connie just snapped.
no, the Attorney General, before, it's a lady that's in there now. Anyways,
Lois.
No, the one that was there before.
it was Ron, Ron something.
It wasn't Leaper, was it?
No, it wasn't.
I don't think so. Doesn't make me remember. I can pull it up in my computer here because I still have the document.
No.
I've seen positive results in Ontario after filing a lawsuit. Within 2 weeks, there was an announcement on national TV. I already told you about that. That 2 lawsuits that happened. U.S. attorneys were removed. They'll never admit that I had anything to do with it. That, you know. But it's amazing you see stuff happen. And this is Alberta Gonzalez. And zip codes are martial law jurisdiction. I can show you court cases that talk about that. And so, sorry?
Military post.
Yeah, yeah. It's an overlay. So when they use a zip code, they're putting you in the martial law jurisdiction. And so what I do is under Title 18 United States Code, Section 1342, it's a felony to send mail to a fictitious mailing address. And so, and it says that that's not a,
Can I get you to hold for a second?
sure.
Why don't we just take 10 minutes?
Yeah, first of all, before I get too carried away,
I think we're way past that.
this is a SEC webpage. And it says here that Canada is a municipal corporation domiciled in the District of Columbia. Okay? So, what this gentleman was talking about with the mortgages, it's all identical here, okay? Also, that also means that all Canadian government officials are subject to United States code. Think about it. And that's another place to send your criminal complaints, to the FBI. You know the FBI's got 3 offices in Canada. Did you know that? I wouldn't send it there though. I'd probably send it directly to the director in DC and let him forward it to whoever. You know, I didn't see any special agents in charge or anything like that. But they have a website, and you can go find where the 3 offices are in Canada. There's one in Ottawa, there's one in Toronto, and there's one in Vancouver, and there's an office in West Germany. First of all, you need to know also that Canada, or I should say United States, there is an American empire, okay? I've seen court cases that talked about Philippines, for example, about customs with Philippines, because the United States liberated Philippines in the Second World War. Philippines was part of the United States. And they were saying that we don't have to pay the customs. And the court ruled against them, but so obviously, the United States can, the Congress can do some other things that, you know, because even though Philippines is part of the United States. So then that brings another question, so what about China? What about all the countries that were liberated by the United States in the Second World War? France, Germany,
For sure.
you know? I mean, and Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, how many countries around the world? They say there's like 100 countries around the world, 100 states. I don't know. But there's certainly good reason to believe right there showing us that Canada's one of them. And so, zip codes. Under United States Code, under Title 18 United States Code, Section 1342, it says that it's a felony to send mail to a mailing address that is a fictitious mailing address or not a proper mailing address, right? So in my document, I have a statement in there that says that my proper mailing address is, and I put my proper mailing address down. Actually, it's the one that you saw at the beginning, zip code exempt, and then I put in 18 U.S.C. 1342. And then there's also a thing in the domestic mail manual, which is the U.S. Postal Service's code book. And it says in there that the only time a zip code is mandatory is for express mail and pre-sorted mail. Well, pre-sorted mail is commercial mail, obviously. Express mail, that's commercial too. So that's the only time it's mandatory, otherwise it's not mandatory. And so, and the same thing, I'll bet you'll find the same stuff for Canada.
Oh, yeah.
And I know other people have. So anyways, that's one thing I tell them, is I don't live in a zip code. And I send it to the clerks in the courts that I file my lawsuits in. And invariably, some idiot clerk will send me back a letter to a zip code. So I'll immediately file a criminal complaint and send it back to the chief judge. And never again, don't get any more stuff sent to a zip code. It's amazing how that works. There was a, you have to, well, I'm not, there was a, on the internet, I'm a member of some Yahoo groups. Like there's a Yahoo group called the Commercial Redemption Group. There's a Yahoo group called the UCC1. There's a bunch of Yahoo groups that I'm a member of. Anyways, there was one guy, one of these Yahoo groups, that called me a ball buster. because that's what I was doing, is they would sit there and this clerk would send me something to a zip code, and I'd just file a criminal complaint, send it to the chief judge, and then the clerk would disappear. You know, I don't know if they fired him or if they just you know, told him not to send me anything and let some other clerk handle it or something. I don't know. But anyways, it's amazing how when you just grind them through your system, you just grind them through. It's just cause and effect, and you don't show an ounce. I mean, these people are criminals. Okay, there's no reason to have any compassion for a criminal. And if they were honoring their oath of office, you know, if they come up to you and say, "Gee, I'm sorry, I apologize," and I can forgive as much as the next guy. You know, they never do that. Now I have got some positive responses out of my notices. Did I tell you about the judge? It's hard for me to remember. In Texas, did I tell you about the judge in Texas?
Nope.
He sent me back a copy of his oath of office and his surety bond. That's a perfect response, in my opinion, because it's basically saying, I stand naked before you. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because he's telling me how, if he damages me, he's telling me how I can obtain my relief. Here's the name of the insurance company. That's perfect. That's a perfect response. In Arizona, the Pinal County Recorder sent me back a letter that said, "We received your document, we have it on file for future reference," and then she signed it personally, and it was signed most respectfully. That's a good response too. And I've got some other ones too, but anyways, let's move on. This procedure that I developed over about the last 5 years. I send a registered letter to my public servant. When my public servant violates my rights, I file a criminal complaint against him and send it to his boss. After 30 days, I make up another criminal complaint. I don't care what his boss does. After 30 days, I make up another criminal complaint naming my public servant as his boss and his boss as a co-conspirator. An accomplice after the fact, and send it next up to the chain of command. Make him prove that he's not perjuring of those oaths of office. After 30 days, I make up another criminal complaint naming my public servant, his boss, as a co-conspirator and accomplice after the fact, and their boss's boss as a co-conspirator and accomplice after the fact, and send it to the next guy up the chain of command. I grind them through my system. I keep going up the chain of command right up to the President of the United States and the Queen, and I always make sure they get a copy. I always record the criminal complaints because after 30 days it's become public policy. It's like a regulation. And it's big time in their face. When I send them a notice and demand, I usually get no response at all. That means they've acquiesced. If there's something that you're saying that is not true, they have a duty to point it out. And they will. Positive responses. Pinal County, Arizona. We already talked about that. Judge in Texas. Edmonton City Police sent me a letter acknowledging the receipt of the document. I think I got a copy of that here. Yes, there it is right there. It says, I've reviewed the contents of your letter and note that there are no articulated complaints of misconduct or complaints of service with respect to any members of the Edmonton Police Service or in relation to the policies and procedures of the Edmonton Police Service. As such, this matter has been classified as information only and is now concluded. That's it. Not too long, but actually that's perfect. you think about it, because he's saying that you've given us notice, we accept your notice, and now we have to abide by your notice. You think about it, that's exactly what he's saying. They've agreed to it. Anytime you get a letter from your public servants, you have to treat it like it's an offer of contract. And the people that are into the Uniform Commercial Code know about that. Anytime you get a letter from the city police saying your grass is too long, that's an offer of contract. It's exactly what it is. And you have to treat it that way. You reject their offer of contract.
Who's the city commissioner or police chief there on that document? Which one?
Staff sergeant.
Well, no, that's just that's just a professional, that's a staff sergeant's all it is.
He's a lawyer.
There was, you're talking who I sent it to?
No, who signed it? Is Staff Sergeant?
Chris Bonke.
Okay.
Boehnke. Professional standards, Bats. Obviously, he's like in internal affairs or something like that.
Yeah, okay.
Negative responses. I got negative responses. Not too many. Usually I get no response. They're smart. If they don't like what I send them, they're really smart not to send anything back. Because if they send something negative back, that's going to be their worst nightmare. The Pennsylvania Attorney General sent a letter making all sorts of legal determinations and presumptions and said they'd enforce the law. So I went and filed a criminal complaint with the Chief Judge of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. There was really no one else I could send it to because he was the Attorney General. I'll bet you he doesn't run for office again, at least. He might decide to resign young, too. And I guarantee you somebody had a little talk with him. The Ohio Public Safety Commissioner sent me a letter making all sorts of legal determinations and presumptions. I filed a criminal complaint and sent it to the Ohio Attorney General, the Chief Judge of the Ohio Supreme Court, and the State Bar. He's a lawyer, so he's perjured his oath of office as Public Safety Commissioner and as a lawyer. I'll bet you he doesn't finish his term. I haven't really followed up on it because I'm not over in that part of the country anymore, so I don't need to worry about it. But they didn't mess with me when I went through Ohio. I started doing this when I was going through a foreclosure in Arizona. As you can tell, I'm kind of an in-your-face sort of guy. I kind of like to push the limit, and so what I did was I paid for my house with a promissory note. And, you know, the bankster thieves, you know, they stole my house anyways. And so I decided to